Hello everyone, good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to Data Physics Coffee Break series. Today we are going to focus on test templates in SignalCalc 900 series. My name is Kalyan Bitta and I am the product manager for the signal analysis product line. A quick agenda for today's topic. We will start with understanding the test parameters, and from that point on, based on the tests available in your test database, we can create any of the tests into test set templates, and I'll show you how to save and access the test templates. There are a number of advantages of using test templates. The first one is measurement consistency. What I mean by that is you can standardize your measurements across different teams and different groups. You are rest assured that you are looking at the same data as your team members. That means if you're working with a rectangle or a Hanin window in a particular task, your team is also looking at that particular window. So you're doing apples to apples comparison. The reporting is streamlined as well because the stats, the documentation, the annotations, the markers that are displayed on the graphs, you will see the same format for all the reports. Of course, the last point is saving time. If you were performing the tests in different test sites, or if you're taking data on different structures, or you're in a production environment where you have to run these tests again and again, test templates is the way to go. Let's quickly switch to the 900 software and let's see how easy it is to create test templates. So when you launch the 900 series is divided into 4 functional areas, starting with the manage test, run test, review area, and system configuration. In today's session, we'll quickly look or spend some time on each of these areas. The last one, system configuration, is a way to look at all the systems that are connected. In my case, I have my computer connected to the 901 unit. Let me go back to the manage tests area where we want to. This is where in today's session we'll spend a little bit more time. The manage test gives you a glance of all your tests. So you could be working on a model test, or you could be analyzing a transient event, or you could be taking measurements on a train pass by, or you're assessing noise. These are all the different various tests that you have in your database, and any of the tests, if you were to repeat them periodically, you can make them into templates. The easiest way to make them into templates is by right-clicking on any of these tests and selecting them as template. But before we do that, let's examine what is in those tests. Like, the test is a collection of the test parameters, the test setup parameters with graphs, signals displayed in different formats, scaling, and also the arrangement of these graphs. So you can see that here, out of the various tests, you have a collection of autopower spectrum test, transfer function test, random vibration control test, a number of these. You can use different techniques to filter these tests. For example, if I want to filter on my autopower spectrum test, so I can simply click on this filter autopower spectrum or a transfer function test. Or I can quickly search on the global section to get to that particular test. In my case, let me click on this plus sign under the general FFT. That is the simplest test case scenario. And in this particular task, I have a couple of runs. Let me go ahead and double click on one of them, run number 2. Anytime you double click on a run, which was already done in the past, this test has already done. So the data is shown in the review mode. As I said before, even while running a test, you can review the data from the previous runs of the same test or runs from a different test. Once you're satisfied with the graphs and the statistics displayed on the graphs, the peaks, you can make any adjustments that you want. In this particular task, you can go through all the layouts. And if you're happy with the graphs, then you can simply close it and then go back into the manage test area. So we looked at the graphs. Now let's take a look at also the test setup parameters. There are multiple ways to get to the setup parameters. I can click on the setup icon, the gearbox, or I can double click on the test itself. When I double click on the test, it takes me into the run test area, the second section here. And under this section, you're armed with running the test by clicking on init or start. But in my case, I want to look at the setup parameters. So I click on the gearbox icon again. And each test has 3 tabs. The test tab is pretty much documenting. You can assign a customer, you can assign a test article, test description, your run notes, and you can select your run increment selections. Let's go into the input channels area where you can look at the inputs. You can define your sensitivities, your engineering units. You can define your coupling if you're working with ICP, and you can select ICP. You can customize your outputs, your tags, all under the channels tab. Let's go into the auto power spectrum test. Under the auto power spectrum test, this is where you define your bandwidth of interest and number of lines. Based on these 2 parameters, you can see the rest of them. The system will automatically show you the frequency resolution, the sampling, all the parameters. Take a quick look at the windows here and the averaging, the different types of averaging techniques and the signals that are available in this test. Once you're happy with that, you simply close the test. And to make it into a template, I right click on my general FFT and click on Save as Template. It is as simple as that. Once I click on Save as Template, I can give it a name. So for example, in this case, let's call it structural vibration. Maybe you want it to be called a master template or a main template, whatever you want to call it. This is user customized template. Now, once you made it into a template and the next week you have to go to a different site and you want to run the same task, you can simply go into the run. You can simply click on the new test. On the left side, you can select your measurement. And in this case, auto power spectrum, and you can see the template we have just created, structural vibration MT, master template. So once I select this template, the test is seeds from this template. All the parameters, setup, graphs, everything that we have defined would stay put into this new test. So let's say I am taking a structural vibe at site 1. I simply click on create test and I can go to look at the channels, auto power spectrum, and you can see all the setup parameters are or derived from that particular template. And if I click on run, you will also see the arrangement of the graphs. So the time window, the spectral window, over time, you can fine tune or improve on this particular test. Let's say your customer wants to see the data in power spectral density units. So you can simply click on the new page here, and let's call it PSDs, as we are trying to add power spectral density plots. And it creates a third page or third layout called PSD. And to add graphs or signals, simply right click on the graph and you can browse, scroll through the signal selector, and let's add G11. So once I add G11, the system automatically applies that filter and it would show me all the frequency domain signals that I can add to this graph. Let's go ahead and pick all the signals from G22 to G44. I'm using my shift key on my keyboard to select multiple traces or signals at the same time. And if I click OK, it will display all of them on a single graph. But what I want is I want one signal per graph based on the customer requirement. Now, on my first one, I have the G11, which is in the magnitude G. I can right click on it, go to graph attributes. And the graph attributes is streamlined to customize your graphs. Every element on the graph can be customized using the graph attributes. In this case, as I want the scaling to be in power spectral density, so I'll simply choose EU square per hertz or EU RMS square per hertz. They're identical. It's just a preference, customer preference. Some like to see it in G square per hertz. Some like to see it in G RMS square per hertz, but it's exactly the same thing. Let me add a couple of minor grids as well. And I can display the y-axis, x-axis, customize them right from here. So let's pick log in this particular case. Now, to apply the same format to all the other graphs present on this layout, I can right click on it, say copy attributes to all. So that applies to all the graphs. So my G11, which is channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, everything are shown displayed in PSD units. So let me go ahead and close this test. Now, based on my changes, if I want to create a template out of it, I can simply right click on it. I can click on Save as Template. I can overwrite my templates. These are all my auto power spectrum templates. So I can overwrite my structural vibration master template, or I can create another template if I want. Now let's take another example, maybe a transfer function. So as I mentioned before, I can simply click here, and if I know the name of the test, let's say impact hammer test, I can start typing in to get to that particular test. Or if you want to see all the transfer function tests that I have in my database, I can use this filter and I can select TRF. So it would display, based on this filter called transfer function, it would display all my transfer function tests. Let's take a look at this impact hammer test. So let me expand it as I did before. Let's see what is inside this test. So it's an impact hammer test and it has 3 pages in it. I'm just making sure this is the format I want, the graphs distribution and the layout. And in this case, I am using a custom layout. So based on the number of graphs, the system will automatically give you different selections how you want to display the graphs. So you could have equal distribution, or that would be 4 square graphs, or you can use custom layout selection, custom graph selection to highlight a particular trace. And also, let's say if I want to highlight my response, I simply select that particular graph and use the arrows here to move them around. Or if I want to swap two graphs, so I can select this one, it's already selected, and I'll select my transfer function using the control select, and one of the icons would change to a swap graph, so I simply do that. So these are all the different techniques you can modify, customize your graphs in the layout. So the next layout, I have my transfer function on the left side and my real and imaginary component, as transfer function is a complex value. And the last one where I am seeing the top 6 resonances and the damping values on this particular graph. I can add more layouts or more graphs, more pages to this if I want to make adjustments to this particular layout. All right, if I'm happy with what was displayed, what I'm seeing in the graphs, I can simply close that and come back. And now let's double click on it. And like before, let's go into the setup icon to quickly take a look at the impact hammer setup. So under the impact hammer, in this case, channel 1 is connected to a impact hammer, and all of the coupling is set to ICP, and the channel 2 and channel 3 are connected to accelerometers in this case, and also ICP. Under the info radio button, I can select my point direction information. As the first one is connected to my hammer, I can also set it to point increment. And in this case, my test is the transfer function. So I can look at the bandwidth, the number of lines. In this case, I'm selecting the window as a rectangle window. And as it is a triggered measurement, I'm selecting my input channel triggering at 5 pound force. And I also define my channel 1 as my reference. That's where the impact hammer is connected to. And if I click on the saves here, then I can see all my signals are automatically exporting to emiscope as well as ASCII. So I can define the signals that I want to export under the test itself before making a template. I'll simply close the setup, and now I right click on it and save as template. So anytime the summary is anytime you want to make a test as a template, right click on it and give it a name. So in this case, I can say impact hammer test structure could be my main template. And if I go into a new test and I select my transfer function, then you can see the template that we just created, the impact hammer structure main template. So from this point, if you select this particular template, you can seed the next test based on this template. So when you create a test from a template, it has all the setup parameters, graphs, layout, except the data as it should be. So the concept is exactly same for any type of measurement. Either it's auto power spectrum, transfer function, or if you're working in a production environment and working with a controller. So for example, same thing here, I will take a look at what is in my random vibration control test. And this particular test has different stages. you're looking at the control drive, control time, make sure that's how you want the test to be. And you simply close the test, go back, and you can look at the setup if you want, or you can simply right click on it and save as template. So let's call this random, let's say it's ML standard master template. And if I click on new, I have the radio button for my analyzers and radio button for the controller, because 900 series can run analyzers or controllers from the same on the same hardware. If I select my random vibration control, you can see the random mill standard master template. Now, at the bottom, you also have a checkbox called include channel settings. While dealing with controller tasks, you can include the shaker settings from that particular template, or you can exclude them. If you check this, you will have the exact settings for the TATS sensor database or the shaker settings in that particular test. If you're sharing these templates, then you might want to exclude them. Or if you're running on a different shaker, you might want to exclude this checkbox. So with that, that's a simple but useful subject on test templates. I want to take a moment to plug the Data Physics YouTube channel, where you can watch previously recorded coffee break videos or web seminars. So there are all of these are archived. You can learn about how to set up an autopilot spectrum, how to run a random controller test, understand how to set up channels, how to do sensor calibration, so on and so forth. Thank you for your time. You can always email me, kalyan.vitta@dataphysics.com, or visit us at dataphysics.com. Thank you and have a great day.